He's had exhibits of his amazing pictures. And I'd like to give you, I'd actually like to package them up and give them to you all, right? So, but I'd like to introduce Mark Jaremko.
Rick is always too kind. Okay. So, as Rick mentioned, I'm Mark Jaremko. I'm a fine art photographer that basically does a lot of shooting at night, and so for the next 6 or so minutes, hopefully I will tell you some of the things that are out there, some of the things I found, and some of the more interesting and colorful experiences that have come along the way. Hopefully that'll be the most interesting part. About 5 years ago, I started on a project to kind of document a lot of urban landscapes and cityscapes, all shot at night, all shot under a full moon, all shot mostly over water, about midnight time, and all photographed with very long exposures, 2, 4, 6, 8, sometimes 10 minutes long. And the interesting thing that the long exposures does is it allows me to actually simultaneously record everything that happens in the scene in that 6 or 8 minute time frame. And so there's a lot there. Waves crash against rocks. You've got the wind blowing the clouds. And in most of the cases, you have this crisp detail, fine cityscape and urbanscape that actually happens in the middle. And I've always been fascinated by the fact that the human presence in the middle is always the brightest thing on the scene, regardless of how big of a natural scene that you manage to capture. So I've been kind of looking to photograph that as much as I can. A lot of this, you can say, is basically a project of the reflection of the light. Here you've got the moon, which is the sun reflecting on the moon, reflecting on the water, and an airplane actually going into San Francisco, landing and also reflecting on that. This photograph is actually in the Museum of Fine Arts in Houston this month on display with their show. The thing I find the most fascinating is you never actually know what's out there. You never, things that you just don't notice during the day, suddenly at nighttime come into stark focus, and you see there's something there out there that you never realized was that. That's actually an oil refinery off 40 miles across the bay. The weather plays a really interesting key element in the photographs. The thick layer of fog over San Francisco produce these wonderful, dramatic, and kind of moody scenes that you just can quite appreciate during the daytime, and that really helps change the image. In addition to the landscape work, I've also actually do a lot of work at various factories, abandoned military bases, urban installations, just all sorts of things that I think might be interesting to kind of photograph. This is the Mare Island decommissioned shipbuilding yard off at Vallejo. You don't actually even have to photograph completely during outdoors. You can find some interesting things inside as well. This again is another photograph from Mare Island. Any place that has an interesting kind of a moody, dark, cold feel, I've always kind of found to be interesting and attracted to that. This is Angel Island, so on the San Francisco Bay. Well, one thing I've learned over the years of actually shooting is that you give plenty of time to think when you're out there waiting for a 10-minute exposure to finish. So reflecting upon the last 5 years, I think I've come to the conclusion there's 7 interesting buckets, 7 categories of things that I found. Number 1, the right place at the right time. October the 12th, 2008, 10:35 p.m., Angel Island, which is the largest island in San Francisco Bay, burns. I was at Treasure Island that night and happened to capture this photograph, which is pretty well a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Sometimes being at the right place at the right time can help. Number 2, the world changes. This is a photograph from a remote port in Canada. I was able to drive up right into the port facility, walk in, no gates, no security, no fences, get right up to the container ships. This photograph would be impossible to photograph in the United States, after 9/11. Yeah, security is just too tight to get some of this stuff. Number 3, you never know who is out there. Good. I actually went out to the Berkeley Pier, which I thought would be isolated on a Friday at 1 a.m. in the morning, only to run headlong into the subculture of night fishing. There were families, over 100 people were on the pier, fishing for sharks, stingrays, parties, music. It was pretty darn festive, not the isolated thing I was looking for. You never know who is out there, the bad. I was photographing this about 2 a.m. in the morning in a beach in San Francisco, and 3 teenagers walked up to me. with baseball bats. They want to know what I was doing, so I showed them. They thought it was pretty neat. We talked about it, they chatted, they wished me a good night, and wandered on their way. You never know. Sometimes the threats come from unlikely places. I found this location, I was delighted, exactly the kind of nice lighted place I was really looking and hoping to actually find. What I didn't realize, it was not nearly as isolated and deserted as I thought it would be. And 2 minutes after I photographed this, I had a bigger problem on my hands. So in case you're confused, the red lines blurring around is actually a second cruiser pulling up, obviously, to get back up to the 2 big officers in the first cruiser, because one guy like me is not nearly enough at 2:30 in the morning. They highly suggested that I just go home. Seemed like a good idea at the time, and that's exactly what I did. Timing is everything. I photographed this location, and 2 months later when I came back, it was gone. The bulldozers came in and just demolished it, and it doesn't exist anymore. So sometimes these places actually do disappear, and you kind of want to document them as much as possible. And number 7, also in the same location. Really? This place is listed as an EPA Superfund site? Well, it's the same building as the one before, and the interesting thing is I came back after photographing the inside of that building, came back 4 days later, only to find the entire place tented, covered, with a positive airflow, asbestos filtration system, and huge EPA warning stickers saying hazard. My first thought was, wow, it's a good thing I actually shot it the night before they tented it. Overall, it's been a pretty interesting 5 years, and I'm pretty amazed at all the different things that I found, and had a chance to see things that most people never would normally actually see, and I'm kind of looking forward to what the next 5 years will bring. Thank you.